we talked a little bit about, so you all are now, Christina, we haven't heard from you yet, right? And you shared a story with me this morning off of riding the Path.
Yes, I was riding the Path train this morning next to a very vocal passenger who I did not know. And he was on the phone, clearly, and he was talking about this girl who must have not been his favorite person. So he just went on and on and on and on about this girl, and I had to hear it because I couldn't block it out. I'm just not that talented yet. They haven't taught me how to do that. So he's going on, and I figure out that he is talking about somebody that he works with. And so then he starts talking about the other people that he works with, and, you know, Sarah was sitting on the other side of me, and she couldn't block it out 2 people away. And so she called it boy gossip. So he's going on, and I figure out that he's talking about people at work, and he's just talking about the, you know, the schedule and the people who are his bosses. And I just started thinking, this dude needs some resiliency work at his job. And so, you know, it was such an eye-opening experience because I wasn't sure what I was going to say about what the relationship between performance and resiliency is for you. And so I was supposed to think about it on the train, but I couldn't because my thoughts were all taken up with what this guy was saying. And that was my answer. That was really, I was able to recognize it for what it was in someone else in a completely separate situation, not the same job. I wasn't in conversation with him, but I was able to hear it, to pick up on it, and to realize what the resiliency group has done for me is to be able to realize that he was not handling this in a very constructive way. It was actually very destructive because I don't think the other person said a whole lot because he kept talking and talking and talking and talking. So it really wasn't a conversation. It was just kind of this whole one-sided thing. And he, you know, it can't possibly be constructive when it's just one-sided like that. And so it was really, really exciting to be able to put a story to share with you about resiliency and being able to learn from it and how I've grown. I've grown because I can listen to that guy and kind of pick out where he can get better in his job or how he can handle his job better.
Can others speak about what the relationship is between performance and resiliency for you, how you see that?
So Performance of a Lifetime started when I first started as well. And I was having a hard time with the performance of walking into each patient's room. So you go in one room, you've got a new diagnosis, they're optimistic, they're, we're gonna beat this, and that's a totally different performance from a room where someone is actively dying. So between each room, that feeling of having to kind of calm down, okay, no smiles when I walk in, I'm gonna just go in and, this is kind of a sad situation. And I was having a really difficult time understanding that that was okay, that was a performance that we were already doing, that we did every day, and that it's fine to change scenes between each room, and that's just part of what we do when we live in general, just in everyday life. When you see one person, it may be one performance, and that's okay. That's how.
I learned that this is a very complex process, and there's so many layers to it. And the more you do it, the deeper it gets, and the more you are able to integrate it into everything that you do. I'm a manager of a department in the nursing, radiation nursing, and so what I learned was that every day it's a different performance, but where sometimes the individual nurse is so entrenched in the performance that they're having with their patient and their service, there's a greater performance that's going on, and it's that dance between physicians, patients, administration, how we're going to use the rooms, how we're going to use the resources that we have to get through the day to make every experience meaningful. And I found it very helpful to be able to step back and say, I can move this scene. This scene isn't appropriate here, and so I can place it someplace else. And I also learned that I'm not alone, because when I can't do it, I have a director, and she's sitting right next to me. And so I can just go right up the ladder and say, I can't see it anymore. And she has even a bigger perspective. And she can say, well, we have hospital resources for you, not just department resources. And so you begin to see that everything is linked. And then coming here, it's even bigger, because I see that y'all are linked to us also, and that you're teaching us how to perform in a whole different way, and there's a national and international level to this. And so I think it's really, really beautiful. And the other part that I learned is that even though all these patients have a story, and we're absorbed in their lives and their stories, when we leave the room, we have a story too. And we usually don't have a place to tell our story. And so what Kathy and Maureen did was say, come together and listen to each other. And from that, you're going to find so much strength and so much depth in just letting, and they're always saying, Marian, accept what they're saying to you. And I'm always like, no, it's not true, because I don't do anything all day except walk around. And they're like, no, there's more to what you do in just walking around, And so I had to learn to listen. And by accepting people's compliments and criticisms, then I could be more vulnerable and more vocal to them in sharing what I thought about them.
Thank you, Marian. If you can hold the mic for another second. I think this issue of, if you can speak more in others, of listening and letting it in, and letting other people, because I feel like you and I have worked a lot on that together. And you fought me the whole way.
Yeah, I hated this program.
I was waiting for you to say that.
And I still don't act, and I won't. But that's okay, because now they accept that. I'm not going to. The part about letting in, I think maybe for everybody, but I know for nurses, we have to set up a barrier, because if not, we would feel all the pain of everyone. And that's really why we go into oncology nursing, is because we have an empathetic spirit. But empathy can only go so far without being nurtured. And so what they did for me was say, let people nurture you. You don't always have to be the one nurturing. And so Maureen would make me sit there and repeat what they'd say to me back. And then she's like, say back what they said to you. And I'd be, no, because I'm not going to repeat lies. And she goes, no, Marian, you're going to repeat it. And finally, after a while, I was able to say, well, maybe one thing I did today was good, or maybe just letting people tell me. I mean, I love to tell people they do a good job. So why can't I let people tell me that? And they taught me that.